Welcome back, adventurers, to another episode of A Hero's Guide to Asgartha. I'm Nick.
And I'm Chili.
And today we're doing something a little weird for the first time. This is going to be our first attempt at something that we're going to be putting up on YouTube.
Yes, I'm excited.
So this is Chili's brainchild. Let me put it this way. So as you guys know, I am all audio. I like audio. I'm fine with audio. If you want to add video, that's fine. This is Chili's brainchild. He wanted to do this after the release of Set 3 because there are so many new cards, but it's hard to filter through what might be good and what might be trash.
Yeah, and what I really wanted to show is, let me back that up. Most cards are not going to see competitive play.
Correct.
Okay, very, very few. In Trials by Frost, if you're looking at a deck having 10, maybe 15% being made out of Trial by Frost, that's probably more than enough, more than people actually used.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to do is, I've seen a few other videos that were out there. Some of them talk about the metagame. Some of them talk about each card, how it can be used competitively. What I want to use this video for is to say, this is the card. This is how you could potentially use it in a deck. You have the choice as a player on how you want to use it and whether it will. We're just hoping to give you some thoughts on it. More especially for what I look for is completely new dynamics, completely new game styles. Even though it's not about winning, it's about having fun. And this may give you the archetypes to build those cards into.
Yeah. So we've got this nice little slide deck. We're going to go through, kind of business proposal slide deck.
Yeah, this is very much me because I am not technically gifted.
Yeah. So we're gonna see how this goes. We're gonna see how you guys like it. We're gonna do all 6 factions, and then we're gonna get feedback. If we can change it up pretty easily for set 4, you might see something different. But if you guys like this, we're probably gonna keep the same thing for set 4. So you guys have the chance to potentially influence how we do stuff.
Yeah, I would appreciate. Or if any one of you want to teach us some things, we are also happy to learn. Now, the other thing we've done is we want to present what we think from our first impressions are our favorite cards, where we think they will be the most impactful cards in the set.
Yeah.
So I call mine the Spicy Card Award as Chili. As you can see there'll be a little chili on it. And Nick's is a Nick's pick, which is a diamond, right?
Yeah, the gems of the
set. This looks good.
Okay, you guys ready? So the first thing that we noticed is that within the play, when you're talking about, who is available, you had 2 heroes that were available from each faction in the pre-release.
Correct. If you're going to be using this set for draft or for sealed, you do not have access to Sierra. And that's why that's grayed out.
Yeah. That being said, you can still use Sierra in competitive play and other decks.
In Constructed.
Yeah, in Constructed. Thank you for using the technical terminology. But in terms of who was technically available in this set, if you do kind of like what Chili was talking about, there was only Sebash and Traced.
That's
so
correct.
That's something that's really interesting to start off with because you're already limited on strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. For draft, you are. And I think I'm glad they took Sierra out here because Sierra would probably take advantage of this more so than the other characters. The same thing as we're going to talk about afterwards, taking out Siggy and also taking out Kojo.
Yeah. So we're going to get started on this. Abby Sap Courier is the first card. We're going through this alphabetically, right? Yes, this is alphabetic. Here's the thing. Abby is a good card if you care about augment enough. If you care about having as many boosts or as many dice on a thing, that matters, right? The problem is this technically only affects cards in play or in reserve. There are cards that allow you to mess with your hero. Abby is not one of them.
Correct. So let's read it. The common one is 3/3 for 3/2/3 in stats. So just a little bit under rate, but you can use it to scout. So on the common one, you can scout for 1, which basically also allows you to use its ability, which is you may augment 1 single target card in play or in reserve. And it explains here what play is. So play is it could be in your reserve, it can be on expedition, and it could also be a landmark.
Correct.
If it has a trigger, it allows it to have one more. If it has 0 triggers, you don't get anything.
Right. And I think we talked about this. I think there's only one card in Axiom, one hero in Axiom that has counters on it, and it's traced.
Correct, but you cannot use traced.
Right.
Yes.
But and that's what I'm saying. Like this would be interesting if you did play it with traced and it did allow you to mess with your hero. Unfortunately, Abby just doesn't let you.
Yeah, augment does not. The actual phrase of augment does not allow you to do it on a hero.
Yeah. Now, granted, there are cards like I said, there are cards that say you may augment a card in play or a card you control.
Yes, that's different.
So, but we'll get into that once it gets relevant. So, as far as Abby's fine.
Yeah, and then the rare one basically becomes 3/3 for 3/2/3. The change is that now you're paying a scout 2. So it's a little bit more expensive, but you can augment any number of cards.
Yeah.
So this is really useful if you are going to be playing the Icebound suite of cards.
Yes.
Because you can get those triggers up on multiple things, or if you have cards that have, so basically your deck is going to be made out of mostly Whispers from the Maze, which predominantly have that ability when it's in reserve.
Yeah.
So not sure. I don't know where you would be able to use it very often, but its upside is very large.
Yeah. I will say I wanted to put this on Abby, but it just barely missed out. Just barely.
Oh, you wanted to put
I
your
really
top
did.
5? Okay.
But we'll talk about that later. So, moving on to the next. Aegis Templar. This card. I love this card so much.
I'm complete in agreement. I think this is one of the best cards to have come out. It's fairly decent stats, 2/2/3 for 3 from hand, 3 from reserve. And you can use it just for its scout ability. So basically pay 2 to get a 2/2/2 bug out both times. So if you don't want to use the 3, but I would always use the 3. I would never truly use the scout ability because decent stats, potentially win you a side, and you get a bug out after the fact when it leaves.
See, I would always play this for the scout.
But then you only get the 2/2/2.
If you strategize this correctly in Axiom, this card has the potential to be so stupidly annoying.
Yeah. And maybe if you're poor on resources, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
But if you're not poor on resources, why not pay the 3, get 2/2/3 stats today, and then tomorrow you have a 2/2/2 out there?
Yeah. No, and here's where I will agree, is that this is fun when you have enough resources to play it twice. If you have 5 resources, day 2.
Yeah.
Turn 2, you play this twice.
Turn 3, day 3.
Or day 3. Thank you. It's so much fun because all you need is 5 resource to play this.
Yeah.
It's so much fun. I love this card. This card is good in every faction. This card is good, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think every hero should play this.
If it can, you should play it. Agreed. Okay, next, moving on, we have Bliss Drummer. Again, I don't think you're going to be able to play artist cards in Axiom if you want artist tribal.
Yep.
I think it gives you robots,
so it's linked to robots here.
Yeah. I think this is interesting. I think it's really, really cool. The problem is that in cards or in decks where you care about the stuff that's in your reserve, I don't think this is going to be in reserve long enough to see the amount of boost that you want on it.
Yeah, and look, there are some Axiom decks that focus a lot on multiple cards in reserve. So especially traced, right? You can get cards in reserve, but you do have to play this. You have to pay 4 for it. It's very expensive, but it allows you to play all your robots. So if you have a robot build, this may be part of the cards that you have, because every robot that you have from reserve is going to cost you 1 less.
Right. So here's my question then. At noon, right, it gains a boost.
Yep.
Or you can exhaust it. Here's my question. Do you play this, give it 1 boost, and then play it again immediately to start getting your low stuff out?
No, you can't do that.
How
would you get the boost in your reserve? So you have to have played it the day before. It gets its boost at the beginning of the day.
Well, no, that's
the
what I'm
first card
saying.
to play.
So like you play this, right? It goes to reserve.
Yeah.
You have it at noon, gain a boost, and then you play it again.
Yeah,
Is that worth it?
very tough. Like if you build your deck, like say for example, you're traced, you've already ticked over your counter.
Mm-hmm.
You have Bliss Drummer in your reserve. Assume you've already played it. It's in your reserve. This will be the first card I play if you've built a deck that is traced robot, right?
Right.
Because then every other robot costs you 1 less. So while this costs 4,
but it's only from reserve.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But trace allows you to bring a card into reserve. But I also see this as very cumbersome to use. But that would be the only way I would do it. I also think it's quite expensive.
That's what I'm saying. Is that like, would you play this to potentially play one other card?
Not really.
No,
because you still have to pay the one.
Yeah.
Like if you have a robot that costs 1, then you're still having to pay another. It doesn't work with any of the other heroes' abilities either. To give them, but if you have a robot deck, that would be the only way I see this.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of this card. Okay, moving on. I'm done.
Yeah.
Bliss Guitarist. At dusk, if I'm boosted, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a robot or permanent, draw it. Otherwise, discard it. Now this has potential in a trace deck.
Yeah, I actually think this has potential not only in a trace deck, but any other deck within Axiom that is centered around robots. Or Tracer specifically because it's centered around permanents. But if you do a permanent / robot build, you're almost guaranteed to get this when you play it from reserve to get a boost.
Yeah, depending on how many
it gains a boost at noon. So it will be the first card you play. You bring it out, you're more than likely going to draw something. And discarding in this case means nothing. Because your discarded cards are not ever lost because they'll just recycle if you ever go through your deck. The part that I don't know whether you can potentially do it is get 2 draws out of it. It's very difficult for this character because it's an artist to gain a boost while it is in play. If you play it from hand, there are some things that give boosts, but it gives robots boosts, not artists. So
see, and that's where it gets weird. I feel like this is going to be interesting if you try and build a robot artist deck, because then you're missing out on the robot part of it.
Yeah, it'd be difficult for the second boost, but if this may be the only card that you have that's not a robot or a permanent in your deck.
The way that I could see this is if you play this, if you put this into your reserve with like Sierra, maybe, and then... Or no, what is it?
You don't want to put it in your deck with Sierra, and you don't want to do it with Subash either.
Who's
because
the hero that lets you put a card into reserve?
That's Subash.
Yeah, Subash.
But it doesn't get the benefit because at noon triggers happen at noon on the
moment. So here's what I'm saying, right? Is that you put this in your reserve and then you Cup of Sap it.
Yeah, okay. Cup of Sap could.
Yeah.
So there are a few things that could do it, but there's very few. And let me just say that again. Because at noon happens all at once... Or you can correct me if I'm wrong. With Subash, is it an at noon trigger? So all of them stack, and you can do all 3 things at once. I don't think because the card exists that you can give it a boost at the same time.
No. So again, you would have to put like some synergy on it.
Yeah,
where
difficult, but it has potential.
Right. No. So with this, because it's not in reserve at noon, when the at noon triggers, this would not allow it to gain a boost at noon.
Correct. So Subash wouldn't give it the functionality.
Correct. So there is potential for it. There's not a lot.
No.
Okay. Next, we've got Bravos Excavator.
This is your first
this
top
is my
5
first
card.
gem.
Okay.
So when I leave the expedition zone for each of my boosts, you may augment target card in play or in reserve.
All right.
I'm not kidding. This card is going to blow up people's decks.
Well, let me ask, though, when you're building this kind of deck, what cards would you have that gain boosts or triggers naturally that you would synergize Bravos Excavator with?
Okay, let me put it this way, right? There's the new... Because, again, we're going to talk about this. First off, there's Abby.
Yeah.
Right? There is a new permanent, I think a couple of new permanents in Axiom that let you augment.
Yep.
There's Cup of Sap. There are so many ways to where you can put boosts onto this thing now and augment the number of boosts that this thing has.
Yeah,
Right?
but augment means there already has to have been a boost in it. So
Right.
so Cup of Sap gives a boost, so you can start augmenting.
Exactly.
Then you've also got you've got your landmarks that have the potential of triggers that you can put something on.
Yep.
But there's not many characters that have gain a boost upon play or season that go into reserve. So that's where I was like a little bit. The thought of this is really strong, really strong.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I did what I did
Mm-hmm.
in terms of this card specifically, because I genuinely feel like something like this with like a rare sap sniffer, even something if you do
Mm-hmm.
dredger drone, something if you do like designer drone, where they care about having boosts on them, and then when you play them from reserve, something like drill mole.
Correct. So mostly from this new set, any of those cards that have those passive abilities where they're gaining boosts at noon.
Right.
So you have to build a deck with many more cards from the current set, or from the new set.
But kind of like what you said too, a lot of cards from Trials by Frost also care about. So if you're playing the Icebound,
yes, landmarks, yes,
if you're playing Icebound landmarks, this is where this is going to just start getting so stupid.
Yeah.
Because so let me put it to you this way, right? Say, for example, you have 2 Icebound landmarks out, right? You have 2 cards in reserve. You have 1 other card on the field, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that you play this, or let's say that this is one of the cards in your reserve, right? Let's just say that. You Cup of Sap this for what? 1, 2, maybe?
Yeah, 1.
And then you get that on the field, right? Then you start augmenting stuff.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe let's say you have 1 Icebound and then 1 of the new permanents. So that's 1 there, right? Then you play an Abbey, right? Or you play a Sap Sniffer, right? At the very least, this with an Icebound, or this with like say an enhanced prototype, the next turn that you play, or even that turn, no, because the next turn you play, because when it leaves the expedition, for each boost you can augment.
Yep. So no, for each card that has a boost, you can augment them by 1.
Well, no, but that's what I'm saying. You may augment target card in player for reserve. So that's saying, so for each of my boosts, for each.
Yes, each boost that Bravos Excavator has. Yeah.
So you take this out, because here's where I'm interested in the interaction, right? So let's say when it leaves, because it leaves at dusk, right?
Yeah.
At dusk when it leaves, if you augment and then you start the morning, because at night, if you have something on the field that's moved in there at dusk, it's going to be there in the morning.
So yeah.
Because it doesn't leave the expedition at dusk. This is when it leaves the expedition. If you augment, say, an Icebound, and you create a 5/5 shade that goes onto the field during dusk.
Yeah. That's an interesting
This
one.
is going to... This card, I'm really excited to see what's going to happen.
There is potential, absolutely. So
I love the potential of this card.
Okay.
So that's why I put it on here, because this card, I guarantee you, this is going to be one of those cards that you're going to see everywhere.
So the place that I would look to bring it, I don't know if you want to do it, is like if you have Arcolona Milk out, that gives it a boost.
That
right?
too.
So that's the card that I would try to leverage this with outside of the Icebound. But there's very few boosting capabilities within Axiom proper.
That's fair. But I didn't even think about Arcolana Milk. This with Arcolana, because here's the thing. If you're going to have it leave anyway, all you need is 1 turn with this.
Yeah.
So that's a good way to do it. So yeah, you've got multiple ways to get this started out.
Yeah, the other thing you can use this for is, I assume you have a couple of boosts on it, and you boom it. You can boom this, and then you don't even those boosts go to other characters in play.
Ooh, yeah,
so self-sabotage. There's potential.
Yeah.
There's potential.
I didn't even think it. That's good.
And it's not too much money. It's only 2, but interesting to see how this goes.
Yeah, this is. I'm going to be excited for this one. Okay, moving right along. This is your first one.
Yeah, I think Bug Out Bag, and I said the common and not the rare per se. Like the rare would be great in Traced, but I'll say the common is very good. You're getting a Brass Bug token out 2/2 for 2.
Yeah.
It's cheap, and it happens both times. when it's out. Now, I will say if you're using Sierra, sorry, is Sierra the one that costs 3, right?
Yes, I believe
so. It's Sierra. With Sierra, you can not only you'll get 2 bugs out whenever you play this. So it is quite strong on that side, and also sorry, from hand you'll get 2 bugs out. So I think this is pretty good. And resupply
with cost. Oh no, because Sierra has to be 3 or more.
Yes, that's why
the
rare is
if
3.
you're playing
But
the rare,
I think the
yes.
common one is fairly decent to bring out.
Yeah.
And once again, the synergies with anything that's a robot, you have the ability of using Brass Bug Hive.
Yeah.
That gives you +1 on anything that's a robot. I
Yeah.
think it goes well with the synergy, and that's why I've chosen that one.
Yeah. I mean, and here's the thing. I like this card. I just feel like it feels uninspiring.
Okay.
That's
It's
why
simple. It is a simple card. 2/2 for 2.
Yeah.
2/2 for 2/2, right?
Yeah. And that's kind of like, this is fine. It's not anything that just like grabs my eye.
Okay.
So it's good. Okay. Moving right along. Bug fix.
This is you've chosen this one, so let's
Rare
listen to this.
bug fix. Spend 1 counter from a card you control or in your reserve to create a brass bug.
Yep.
Here's the thing. Late game, this with Vike, you have this with what is it? Is it rare Vike? I can't remember. There's the thing that lets you play
cards from reserve that are exhausted.
I think it's the rare Vike, because
Yes.
I think the common Vike lets you play characters. I think the rare lets you play. I have to look. It's been a minute, because you can potentially play this twice if you play it right and get 4 out of it for 2.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good. Like, you don't want this in reserve if you're playing a whole bunch of other cards. Maybe this is not the one that you choose to keep.
Yeah.
But is it Repot or Order as well? Which is the other card, or is it Porter that also lets you play cards that are exhausted?
Ooh, okay, here we go. So Vike Energy Pioneer, you can play exhausted cards from reserve. So that's Vike. And then Daring Porter, I believe also lets you... Oh, no, that's exhausted resupply. Sorry.
It's exhausted. Okay.
Oh, Colonic Heater.
Colonic Heater also does it in your expedition zone. So that's pretty useful.
But the difference is that Colonic Heater lets you play characters only. So it would have to be Vike.
Yep.
So
I think it's really strong for what you're getting. You're getting double the benefit for the resources.
Yeah.
So that in and of itself is good. And once again,
everything
in Axiom, it augments. It works alongside. Sorry, it doesn't augment.
No. But this with the augment, where if you're augmenting something and then playing this and then augmenting again and then playing it again either the next turn or the same turn, this card is going to be so good. This card is going to be so good in Axiom right now.
I think it's very useful, very cost effective, and great after you. It will also go, once again, as we've talked robots a lot, if you have the
Brass Bug Hive.
The Brass Bug Hive out, gets the boost, and that automatically triggers anything that's augment.
Yep.
Right.
Okay, next we've got Kappa Sap.
Yeah.
This is stupid. This is such a stupidly good card.
Yeah.
And the thing is that this is the common version. The common and rare version have Bravos. So this is the common version. But here's the thing. This is still so good, because you have so many characters that care about putting stuff into your reserve at noon at the beginning of your turn. You do that, and after you this is the automatic no-brainer for me.
Interesting. The only thing it is so cheap that it's worth it. Like the only part that I consider this as a thinking, just to take a little bit of time to think, is it allows your opponent to sabotage again. So most people, when they play, they will sabotage the first card. The moment that they have their turn, that's their first turn, is sabotage.
That's fair.
Now, this allows people to think that the whole dynamics of Whispers from the Maze basically has people thinking, do I sabotage now? Or do I wait because something may be scouted or something may be enhanced or augmented during the day? And maybe it's best to wait. If you're playing someone that is just going to sabotage the first thing, Kappa Sap is great. You can put that on. No, you got no worry. But that is a balance of the new set. But I think this is very strong. You're once again getting double the resources for what you pay, and you can play it again from reserve.
Yeah. Let me again set the scenario for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know we want these to be quick, but I feel like I have to set up I have to
Yeah,
give you
all good, man.
scenarios for this, right? So let's say this, right? Let's say you do Sierra, right? Turn 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have 3 mana on your starting turn. If you draw a Sap Sniffer, you play that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you can even pay the 1 for a Brass Book if you really want to, right? So here's what you do. You put this into your reserve, right?
Yeah.
You cup a sap, and then you bug fix.
So but Sap Sniffer doesn't. You can't. You'd be
Or
wanting
like
to
the
do.
order, you can do the
Yeah.
order
Okay.
however you want, right? So this, you could probably do cup a sap first, and then you could do bug fix, and then you could play it again to augment, whatever's already been
Yep.
augmented, right? Because it can augment itself if it has boosts, right?
Yeah. Correct. But this is target character in reserve, so you have to be playing it from reserve.
That's fair.
You can't target a character in play.
The
It's only
rare lets you. The Sap Sniffer lets you augment card in play or in reserve
correct.
for
Yes.
Sap Sniffer. So that's what I'm saying. Like you're going to see some weird combos coming out.
I think this is great. This is the Cup of Sap is the starter for anything that's an augment combo.
Yep. And that's why I put it here, because yes, it's a boring card. 1/2 target character in reserve gains 2 boosts,
Yep.
right? It's boring, but the amount of combos that you're going to be seeing come out of this card by itself, it's basically an after you.
Yeah. The other one is like, and I don't know if Axiom has access to much, but if you can get something to become anchored, then
Ooh, yeah.
like you're putting it on something with the ability of anchored, because anchored cards are usually lower in terms of their output
Yeah.
because they're there for 2 days. It's something beneficial, or sleeping it would be the other one.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that takes us through to the next card.
We've got Designer Drone. See, and again, augment. Okay, so first off, the common 1/3 for 1 all, and it has a passive ability of at noon, choose 1. It gains a boost, or you can exhaust it for 2 boosts, right? The rare is the exact same, only it has a play from reserve ability that says you may spend 1 counter from a card you control or in your reserve to reduce the cost of the next permanent you play this afternoon by 2.
Okay. I think that rare is really, really useful.
Yeah.
If you can get any permanent out at a reduced rate, and in this case, even if you have 1 boost on it,
Mm-hmm.
you're basically getting this card out for free.
What is that? Turn 4, you can play this and get a Brass Bug Hive out for 4.
Yep. Yeah.
That's gross.
But it does cost you 3 to bring this out.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So you would need to play it turn
Yeah.
4, so you have 7 mana.
Yeah. And then on that, you'll also get this to be boosted by 1 more, because the brass bug gives it, if it's the rare one, gives a +1.
Yeah.
I think this may get to see some play. I didn't rate it among my top 5, but maybe I should have. This could actually be useful in many, many types of deck, and I'll say also in competitive ones too, especially where it costs so little from hand.
Yeah. And the thing is that you play this turn 1, you give it 2 boosts the next turn, and then you just play it again for a boost, and then you reduce the cost of your next permanent. That's still a good play.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a good card. I love this card.
Think so.
Okay, moving on. Dredger Drone. There's a lot of drones.
Yeah. It's Axiom. This is what they do. They just build
Yeah.
robots all day.
Okay. Dredger Drone, the common, 2/3, 1/2/2, has a play from reserve ability that says you may spend 1 of my boosts to resupply. And then it has the same passive ability. I think most of the cards in Axiom have the same passive ability, where it's at noon, you can choose either to have it gain 1 boost or exhaust it to gain 2 boosts up to a max of 3.
Yeah, there's a couple that are different, but this is your generic one.
Yeah. The rare changes the wording that says you may spend 1 counter from a card you control or in your reserve to resupply. So rather than saying you have to spend 1 of the boosts from Dredger Drone itself, the rare lets you spend it from anywhere, either in play or in reserve.
Yeah. This is actually really useful with the Icebounds, where you don't want to trigger the 3rd one. You can remove it from one of those. And say there's one of them that says that basically triggers when you play a card from reserve.
Mm-hmm.
You can reduce the trigger before gaining a trigger to keep it neutral. So it allows you to defer that Icebound coming out, or the dragon coming out.
Right. And I don't know that you would want to do this, but this is one of the cards that lets you connect with Traced. You can remove a counter from Traced to play this card.
Yes.
Because this is one of the cards that says from a card you control.
Mm-hmm.
And a hero card, technically by the rules, is a card that you control.
Okay. Now, and interesting, because once you have Traced, once he's over his 5, he can continue to get more triggers, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. So he can be infinite.
Yeah.
And then you just reduce it. It's not actually eliminating anything if that's the case. That's a
so
good one.
late
That
game?
We'll read up on that one, because that may be one that they adjust as part of the rules.
Yeah.
I don't recall reading that, but I also didn't look for it.
Yeah, I don't, because I think once Trace hits 5, people just stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
So it's possible. So now people might actually be caring about that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something to look into.
Yeah.
Okay. This card is really fun.
Drumel?
This card is really funny. 2/3, 2/2/0 in the common. You can spend one of my boosts to sabotage. So again, this is the generic thing where, like, the difference between the common and the rare is you can spend one counter from a card you control or spend one of mine. Right? This card, I want this card to be so good so badly.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is, in like a lot of the drones, a lot of the robots, I think this is going to be one of the cards that you see.
Look, it may. I also feel, though, like it's quite understated. So you're paying 3 resources from reserve to get 4 stats. So in most cases, it's almost missing 5.
Mm-hmm.
Because normally for a 3 cost, you'd expect there to be 3/3/3 worth of value. Now, once again, you are getting extra stuff because there's potential for boosts to come while it's in reserve.
And you have the sabotage.
And you have sabotage.
But here's the thing, you don't have to. Here's the thing. If you play the problem with these is the rare,
mm-hmm.
right? Again, with Traced, you can spend a trace counter on this. You don't necessarily have to spend the boost from this card or from a card that's already boosted either in play or in reserve.
If you're going down the rare path, yes. But once again, you're going to be competing with very few cards options, but there's only 15.
What if you just play one of every drone?
I do like the idea of sabotaging, though.
Can you imagine that? Can you imagine if somebody built a robot deck and every single one of their rares when it comes to robots and drones is just one copy of, like, designer drone, of the next drone, of drill mole?
That's so funny.
That would be really funny.
Yeah, I think it could. I like the idea of this card, and I think if you're trying to play a control type of deck, this will be a card you'd use. Just be mindful whether or not that sabotage is even useful. Like if you're playing against Fen, sabotaging one of their 3 options that they will always have in play may not necessarily be useful.
Yeah.
Because they have so much available to themselves. That'd be with their resupplies.
Yeah. Okay. Moving next. Ephron.
I love Ephron.
Ephron is such a fun card, such a good card. The problem is that I don't think it's going to see a lot of play in Axiom. I genuinely just don't think it's going to.
Yeah, there's nothing else within Axiom that kind of leverages dice roll, right, or manipulates dice roll. So now, do you want to pay 2 resources to potentially sabotage or resupply? You run the risk, 50-50. Maybe you don't get the option that you want, and you're paying a lot for just a resupply. If all you do is resupply and you're paying 2. Yeah, not sure how you would use this outside of if you want to have more interaction with your opponent. But once again, it's a risk on what you do. From reserve, if you do end up paying it from reserve, it doesn't have any ability. So it's 3 from reserve for a 4/4/4 or 5 from hand for a 4/4/4.
Here's the thought I just had.
You get it, but go ahead.
You're paying the exact same cost to scout this and then play it again.
Yeah. So there's no point doing it if you do that.
No, that's the entire point. You get both benefits of the card.
No, you don't. So
No, that's
the scout
true.
is only available to you from hand. So you don't. This one is from hand. Roll a die.
Well, no, but that's what I'm saying. So like the difference is either you play this or you scout it and then play it,
Yeah, and it gives you exactly
and it's the
same.
exact same thing.
It does give you somewhat of an after you. So then so that Efren doesn't become.
I guess that's the point.
It doesn't get attacked in play because there's so much interaction.
That's where the strategy is going to come into play if people start playing this card.
But then you open yourself up to sabotage.
Yeah.
So tough one.
Yeah, this is gonna be interesting to see.
I've not seen anyone use it.
Oh, okay. I don't care about Efren anymore. Enhanced Prototype. I'm not kidding. Enhanced Prototype is one of the best cards in this set. Yeah, Enhanced Prototype is such a banger card.
Yeah, don't even get distracted by how much it costs. It is misleading.
This card, this is where people are going to start getting really stupid with augment stuff.
Okay, you want to read it for the guys?
Okay, the common Enhanced Prototype, 5/6 for 5 all. So first off, that's 15 stats. From reserve, it has you may spend one of my boosts to ready 2 mana orbs. And then it has the generic passive and the rare changes, again, only the play from reserve where you spend 1 counter from a card you control or in your reserve to ready 2 mana orbs. Mm-hmm. Stupid card.
Yeah.
Stupidly good card.
Yeah. Like without a single effect, it is already on rate.
Yes.
5 for 5/5/5. And in reserve, it is a bare minimum 6 for 6/6/6 because you get the boost.
Yeah.
And actually, let's re-say that again. You either pay 6 to get 6/6/6, or you pay 4 for a 5/5/5, and you get you basically only use 4 mana, not 6.
Yeah.
This is by far one of the best economical uses of your mana.
I am not kidding.
And I went the common. You chose the rare. I'm like, you don't even need the rare benefit, but
because again, traced. You play this in a trace deck, you're basically giving it free boosts.
Yeah, this is phenomenal.
This is a great card.
These are the kind of cards that I long for and look for that force someone to make a decision to say, I will spend more than your 1, 2, 3 cost cards.
Yes. This card is worth every single resource that you use to spend this. And such a good card.
Now, I have not the law hasn't come out for this. My whole thing is this is the broken prototype or the fault what is it called, faulty prototype that they fixed up,
that Trace is trying to.
Yeah, I think it's the storyline of they found it in the mountain, they got it starting, and this is what it ends up as.
Here's the thing though, is that Sierra's the one working on it in the card art.
Ooh,
that's where it gets interesting to me. So maybe Trace is maybe everybody in Axiom is working on this, but this is going to be interesting to see the lore on this too. I agree with that.
Yeah, good work checking out those prosthetics. You were able to find that pretty easy.
Yeah, it's all because of the spell that's in this set. So we'll get to that though when we get to it. So moving right along,
the best card. I'll say this card. This so far is the best card that we've gone through.
Yes, 100%. This is one of I think this is top 5 for me.
Okay,
if not top 3
in the whole set,
the entire set.
Jeez,
this is such a good card. Okay, Evanescence. You already know how I feel about this card. We're going to let everybody else know. Evanescence is a disruption spell. It is 2 from hand, 2 from reserve. Do the following
4 from reserve.
X
4 from
plus
reserve.
1. 4 from reserve. That's my bad. 2 from hand, 4 from reserve. Do the following X plus 1 times, where X is my number of arcane counters. Send to reserve target character with hand cost 2 or less, then exhaust it. And it has a passive ability where at noon, choose 1. I gain 1 arcane counter up to a max of 3, or you can exhaust it and I gain 2 arcane counters up to a max of 3. At the very least, you play this for 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you get this 1 time.
Yep, that's from hand.
Cup of Sap this? Or no, because Cup of Sap is only characters, right?
Yes.
Yeah, never mind. I mean, here's the thing. If you can wait a turn to give this 2, this is automatic token removal. And it's so good.
Yeah, it can be very useful. I also think if I'm going to play this on any deck, I'd be using this as an intimidation tactic. Whether I play it or not, it forces your opponent to be very careful of how they play their cards.
Right.
Because they're like, they may remove some of my cards. And I also think it starts forcing people to start using cards that are more than 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So
Here's where this gets interesting, though, is that so say you play this, let's say turn 2, right? You pay this turn 2 for 2 mana, right? The next turn, you have it gain without exhausting it, right? I mean, you could even exhaust it if you want to gain the 2 next turn, because it doesn't matter because you're going to play it the next turn anyway. You play either an Abbey or a Sap Sniffer or both if you want to get economy out of it, right, for not exhausting it. This card, you can play it. All you have to do is wait 1 turn.
Yeah.
And you can play it again.
Correct. Like you just play the one, you get your exhaust, you get the augments on it. The other thing that I think this is really useful is those cards that flood the board with, as you said, tokens.
Yeah.
To be able to get rid of them because they don't even go to reserve; they just disappear.
Yeah. This is wholesale token removal.
Yeah, and if you're playing against my deck, which is my my Sigismar deck, which basically my unique say, if you control a token, this will stop a whole bunch of my synergy. And I think a lot of the synergy. Now, I'll also say Siggy is not as strong in this set as the previous sets, but there will be those that require that they will play so low to the ground. You can also really use this against any
token deck.
No, not just token decks. I would go against a Farnus. A Farnus usually only plays 1 character. And
That's
just
true.
boost that character to Kingdom Come.
You could also do it for Muna. Muna has a lot of low-cost stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even for some stuff in Bravos, that's... Okay, I know I didn't put it on this. This card was also very high on that list, only because it can interact with so many factions.
Yeah, and if you have an Nihilum build, Evanescence really works with that as well.
Yeah, agree. So I think this has potential. I think this has a lot of good potential with it too, especially in Axiom, which sucks because it's the out of faction. So we're not going to talk about that though.
Yeah.
Moving on. Hestia.
This is one of my worst light cards. I really cannot stand it. Like the 4/4 for 4/2/4. Okay, I guess it's okay, but why would you have to pay 1 to give a boost as your passive ability?
Yeah.
Like most people don't have enough resources to give away a resource
as is. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and the only reason I say that's really poor is if you play a card that gives a boost for 1, you at least pass the turn over.
Yeah.
This is a passive one that you still have to do something with it. So I don't know. This one I will struggle to put it into any deck unless you're really short on rares.
Yeah. This is going to be really interesting to see if it plays at all in Axiom.
Yeah.
So
now, I'll also say this. This may be useful at the end of game where you may not have many cards, where you want to use Augment, you're now giving a boost. Okay, that's the only potential I can see. Once again, there'll be other deck builders that will have more idea on this than me, but I am baffled.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who plays this card. Okay, moving right along on the list to Icarus. This is fine.
Look, 4/3 for 4/4/2 in stats in both the common and the rare. Both of them have a Scout 1 ability, and the common allows you on play to ready all cards in reserve.
So this is what we were talking about with cooldown. This has potential for stuff with cooldown for scouting.
Yeah,
but I don't know that that's worth it.
Neither do I. There's very few decks that basically exhaust. There are some in Axiom. Axiom's got access to a fair bit of builds with Nihilum, and then Izmir has multiple ways of exhausting. Now,
let me put it this way, though, too. If you care about playing stuff that's going to be exhausted, right, then this rare has potential, but I don't know that you want... Well, now, let me say this. If you're building the deck around playing stuff from reserve that's exhausted, then like a lot of stuff from set 1 is not cooldown, because that was a mechanic that they introduced in set 2.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to have a lot of set 1 cards for this. That being said, set 2 and set 3, I feel like there's enough cooldown to where this has potential to just cycle through so many spells at once.
Yeah.
So kind of like, for example, like we were talking about the bug fix, right? You have this in your reserve. You play bug fix twice automatically.
Yeah, true. So for me, the way I would use this card more so is an after you.
Yeah.
And the reason I would say using it that way is you scout one, you send it to reserve. I don't care so much about the ready cards in reserve because its cost from reserve is overstated. You're getting 10 stats for 3 cost. So that's not bad. That regardless of an ability, that's not bad, but you've just given yourself an after you and not giving them access to something in play.
What would you pick though? Would you pick the rare or the common?
Common.
Really?
I unless you're building a deck that is really focused on playing cards from reserve that are exhausted, if you're doing an island build, then I'd go the rare potentially, but the rest...
You have to build it with the intention of playing stuff from reserve that's exhausted.
Yeah.
If you're doing a lot of frozen frozen delivery, frozen reprocessor, if you're doing a lot of Porter,
and there is a little bit of build for it, or you're
playing Vike,
or you're playing constantly against an Izmir deck that uses this against you.
I will say this is a really good counter to my deck that I build. So
it has
maybe
potential.
They heard me.
Now on a fun side, that Icarus was the card that got revealed at my request at PAX East.
Oh, cool!
So this is what Kohlrabi chose for me. So I will always have an affinity towards this. I just have not found it useful in most cases right now.
Okay, we gotta start blazing. We're gonna go next.
Yep,
Junior Chef. It's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
I think the resupply is good. It is basically on par with its stat if you're able to let it stay in reserve to get the 2 boosts.
Right.
So 1 for 1/1/1 from a reserve, 3 for 3/3/3 if you give it the 2 boosts while it waits, potentially to go higher. And then you resupply. So resupply is always good. It may see some play, but it's a rare.
Yeah. Again, it's that rare slot. So next, Merlin. Okay. I want this card. Again, I want this card to be good. I don't know that it's going to see any play in Axiom.
Yeah, neither do I. I'm sorry, Guy Trying. You were the revealer of this wonderful card. It costs too much from hand, and even the scout ability of being 4 makes it very difficult. Now
it's on par for some removal that says target character or permanent.
But in that case, you might as well pay the 6, and then the additional 2 cost you've paid gives you a 3/3/3 character.
So I don't know that you would ever want to play the scout card unless you're that far behind.
Yeah, the only the benefit where it is a card has 2 uses here. You can use it to remove spells while putting some bodies on there. You can remove characters while putting a body on there. So it does give you a little bit of flexibility, but it's quite costly. So most people do not build things that cost this much for a character.
I will say, just as an anecdote, the flavor text on this, I wonder who he's talking to. You and I both know that has never been about the sword.
That's Achadi's the only one I can think of, right?
I think he's talking to Achadi. So I wondered.
We're going to find out. They have said they're releasing the lore. They should have released it upon set release, but I don't know what's going on.
We'll have to double check that.
Yeah.
Next, Messictet.
I'm surprised that neither of us put this as one of the top cards. I think it is a very good card. My reasoning for not putting it as a top card is I don't know if Axiom truly plays from behind.
That's the problem, yeah.
Now, it is a fantastic card. It is not as strong as the rare in Ordis because it doesn't give you the benefit on play. But maybe you do it and you basically fall behind that turn and then you catch up by bringing the 2 Bass Bugs on the next day.
Yeah, I think that was the other reason why I also didn't do this. Because this is fine for when you're tied, but I don't think you ever want to be playing from behind an Axiom.
The potential would be with Sierra, so where you at least get a Brass Bug out by playing this, and then in future turns, once again, if you are playing from behind, it does give you a huge benefit. It does force your opponent though to change some of their game style by bringing out Messictet, because they're like, well, I'm going to have to make sure that they're ahead on one of the 2 zones because I don't want the double. I don't want the double trouble. So
yeah, this is Again, this is a card that I think would be interesting to see in Axiom. I just don't think it's going to see a lot of play in Axiom. This is definitely going to be the Ortis card, 100% though.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about
moving.
Nyland Spires?
Here's here's the interesting thing, right? When another permanent joins your expeditions or landmarks, right? So this is expedition gear and this is any permanent, right? It gains an arcane counter. Then you can exhaust it and spend 3 arcane counters to create a brass bug, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about this card.
I like the idea of it.
Because it doesn't count for itself, though.
Nope.
That's the problem that I have with this card.
Yeah.
If it counted for itself, then it might be worth it.
Yeah. The other thing is there are limitations on what you can have in your landmark zone, your permanent zone. So you can only ever have 2. So if you the way that I would think you could play this is if you've got landmarks. Once again, it can be expedition permanents as well. So it's not just landmarks that you can put expedition.
You could do Arcolano Milk,
but if the only card, like if you are not playing Sierra, this will be tough to play.
Yeah,
because you get no value out of it, and potentially no value for 3 turns, right? Because it takes
potentially.
You may not. Now, the only way that I would see this being used is if you're playing very low cost permanents, 1s and 2s, or if you play the Armorer Jammer, which has the potential of basically sabotaging on play, and then the rare one, and sabotaging upon leaving, because it clogs up one of the spots. But I think very difficult. It's a very difficult card to play.
This card is going to rely heavily on Augment. If people do play it, this is going to be the one where people are going to be playing Abby. They're going to be playing Sap Sniffer. This is a hard card to really justify.
But I like that idea. If you have the Augment framework, this will be a great one to play because you'll always have one. You just got to be mindful of never making it 0.
Yeah,
you've got to make sure that there's always going to be 1 left over.
Yeah,
that's a some good thought. Now I'll say this is one of my favorite art though.
This artwork is so good.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, did you pick Nyland Spires for your adventure pass?
No, because you told me you did.
No, I picked Axiom.
This is Axiom. Oh, Nyland Spires.
This is Izmir.
From Izmir. No, I have not.
Okay,
I did not.
I'm
Ortis. You know, I
that's right.
cannot
you did
deviate from Ortis, but I chose Bravos as my second one for my second account.
Okay, moving right along into Sap Extractor. This card is going to be so stupid in Augment decks, man.
Yeah, and it is cheap.
It's dirt cheap.
Now
let's say this:
common or rare.
This is where I have a hard time because if you're building specifically around Augment, you have to play the rare. You have to play the rare because if you can at least get 1 boost on everything you have and then augment with that augment stuff is going to go off so hard.
Or the only tough part is you're clogging up one of your reserve spots. So you can only augment 1. Sorry, not reserve. You're clogging up one of your expedition. Sorry, your permanent zones.
Yeah.
So you can only ever be augmenting 1 at a time.
Well, no. But that's what I'm saying. So like if you play the common, then you like that's where you're like it's a slow roll.
Yeah.
If you play the rare specifically in an augment deck and you already have stuff that's augmented, and then you're playing stuff like Sap Sniffer, you're playing stuff like Abby. That's where this is going to be interesting.
No, what I was saying is, if this stays in your permanent zone, you can only have 1 more permanent to add.
Oh, yes.
You can only augment the 1.
Well, I mean, even if you have this and Brassbug Hive, like that's where it's going to get really interesting in terms of just being able to see. Because I mean, even if you play this with the Sap Extractor, right? At noon, if you're augmenting and you have this on the field, if you have a way of having it stay on the field, it's going to be good. But I think it's going to be interesting the way that people synergize this with other cards.
Yeah, I think there's potential. I once again looking forward to these new builds, these new decks that focus on an archetype, because there's a lot in this set that synergizes with each other very well with Augment. So
yeah. Okay, moving on. Sap Overflow. So for 4/4, the common has fleeting. This is a spell. It says discard target character in play or in reserve. Then the rare has choose one. You can spend a counter from a card you control or in your reserve to discard target permanent, or you can discard target character discard target character in play or in reserve.
So the only benefit this gives you is the option of both.
For a counter,
you can basically get rid of a character that's in play or sabotage.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's very expensive. I think I think there's better options. This may only be used in
augment,
in sealed.
I think this might only be used in augment or in sealed.
Yeah.
Here's the
It
interesting
just
thing,
falls
though.
a lot, though.
Yeah.
Like you have to use it for something in play. You would not use it for something in reserve. And the reason I say that is, like, when it's in play, they have usually spent the mana. So you're like, yes, you're spending 4, but they would have spent 2 or 3. Whereas if you just put it in, rid of something in reserve, unless they're very short of cards in hand, they have multiple options they can still use their mana for. So a very difficult one to use.
The good news is, though, is that you can spend the counter from anywhere. So again, this is something that you can spend on a hero if you really needed to. So you could use this off a trace if you really needed to. So like that's where I could see it somewhat being used. This is the card, though, that makes me think that the Leviathan, or like the main thing in the maze, is Talos. So this art made me think of that. So it's going to be interesting, though, to see if this gets play at all. So
what do you think he like what's being shot out?
That's what I'm saying. So this is the sap, but so I have a theory that the sap is actually ichor, which is like the blood of the gods.
Oh.
But so Talos in the story, there's a nail keeping it in place, and when the nail gets pulled out, he's drained of all of his blood.
Ooh.
So I think that the sap is actually ichor, which is like god blood.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. So moving on, Sap Sniffer.
Mm-hmm.
Good card. Just a good card.
I think
like
so.
it.
I've come to like this card a lot more over time.
Yeah.
Given it's only 1/0/1/1, one from hand, one from reserve.
Yeah.
And basically you have the potential of getting 2/1/1 for 1.
Yeah.
1/2/2 for 1 resource, both played from hand and played from reserve.
Well, the problem is that it has to have a counter on it already.
Something will have. So you remember, if you are building a deck that has counters in its permanents, you will always have that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I really, again, with the augment decks, I think you're going to see a lot of augment coming with Axiom in this set. I think this is going to be great. This is just good augment resources.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think more people will use that in all kinds of decks in my mind, because it's so as a cheap after you at the bare minimum.
Yeah, at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next we've got Shortage Supervisor. 3/2/2 for the common, 2/3/2 stats, and from reserve, if your hand is empty, I gain a boost. The rare is missing 1 stat, so it's 3/2, 2/2/2, and then from reserve, if your hand is empty, I gain 2 boosts. Otherwise, I gain 1 boost.
Yeah,
I don't think this is going to see play at all.
Yeah, this will be a hard one. So you're already going to have 2 resource. So for the resource cost you pay, you're getting 2 stats too little. You are getting a little bit more from reserve and potentially more, but you never want to play with an empty hand.
I don't think I've ever seen an Axiom player with an empty hand.
The best use of this card is to see the little matchstick girl in the background of the rare. Unfortunately, I this is a hard one for me to even appreciate. At least, or let me just say, from reserve, the rare will at least cost you 2 stats for 3/3/3. You'll always get the boost.
Okay, yeah.
But there's better options in rares,
I agree. Okay, moving on. Staff Clerk. This is going to be so stupid in Axiom.
It has huge potential if you build your deck around a resupply strategy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Or playing purely from reserve. Because you imagine you could get an extra token out every time you play something from reserve.
Yeah.
It's going to force more people to look at uniques that have that on play, basically resupply,
Yeah.
or on play, put a card from your hand into reserve to do whatever.
Yeah. This is
So-
going to be really interesting to see if people can actually get this. I kind of like you said, I think this has very much the potential to be a good card, but it's interesting to see because again, I don't play a lot of Axiom. I don't know if this is going to see a lot of play though.
Yeah, because it has to be you that plays these cards,
Exactly.
not anyone else. So you have to have enough resources available to play them. And just note, if you use the quick ability and get rid of a card from reserve, that is not playing it.
Correct.
So it has to be played onto the field, whether it's the expedition zone or the permanent zone.
Yep. Okay, next, Swift Jin, brother of mine. Let me tell you right now, this card is going to be so good.
But you haven't put your stamp of approval.
I know. But here's the thing. I want to build a tribal Jin deck so very badly. The reason why I didn't put this is because it's not tribal, because there's no other Jin. There's no other Jin in Axiom. This card, though, good Lord in heaven, this card is so good.
Yeah, I love the idea of it's more expensive after you because you have to scout 3,
but you get an extra mana orb.
Yes, but you have to you have to take a card from your reserve to do it. So
Axiom
it's a little bit of a downside.
So well.
If you have enough cards in reserve, or you're going to have enough cards going from your hand to your reserve that is going to flood it, it has potential. I would prefer using the card for its full value as a 5/5/3 for 6, because you still get that chance to put something out. It has potential. I think there's no real ramping strategy right now in Axiom. But it will allow you to start playing to try to build a deck that is much more expensive if you can get these out early on.
Let me put it to you this way. Let me give you the thought process, right? The reason why this card in my mind is good is because at least you have the choice of what you're using for mana. Whereas a lot of times it's just random whatever's at the top of your deck. So that's the reason why I think that Swift Jin for 3 is a good choice if you want to ramp in Axiom, because at least you have the choice of it rather than just top decking whatever you top decking for mana.
Yeah, but it's like, I know Axiom doesn't have ramp, but the ramp in other factions, and let's just say Bravos, because that's who really does it, they don't cost 3.
That's true.
So it's an expensive ramp for what you're getting, but it might be essential. It people can work if that works for them. I do like the idea of thinking that says, hey, if I can get an extra resource early, can I change the composition of my deck build to be a little bit more expensive?
Yeah. So I think this is going to be interesting to see who plays this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this card. This is another one of your spicy cards.
Yes, I think this is really spicy.
This card is so stupid.
And I like...
This is so stupid.
I like the 2/2 version, so the rare version. Basically, both are the same. The common costs 3 and 3. And it is a permanent that goes into your landmark zone. Landmark permanent that stays there forever, and you now increase the size of your reserve. We haven't spoken about this type of architect, which is more like, how can you flood your reserve without losing it at end of day? This is what allows you to do that.
This is going to be so stupid.
Sierra would use the 3/3. Everyone else would
Everybody
use the 2.
would use this, dude. Everybody.
But the 2/2 is what I'd go for.
Correct. Like, specifically in Sierra, you do want to be playing that because it hits her. That's why they kept it at 3, and that's why they made the rare at 2, in case you want to play this in Sierra. I can almost guarantee you, though, 99% of the time, if you're not playing a Sierra deck, you're going to be playing the rare.
Now, I will also say this is a card I would use in my own decks to play on first hand.
Yes.
I don't care about going behind one or potentially 2 tracks. If I know in the rest of the game, I'm going to have a reserve increase that they won't have.
Here's the problem, though. It's going to be hard to keep this on the field, though.
When we talk about the next card, which we could just go to
That's
right
true.
now,
We're just going to go right now.
This is something that would absolutely target it.
Yeah, Grems is brother mine.
Yeah.
This is going to be such a funny card.
So for me, this is among the top cards in the set as well, like across all factions.
Yes.
I chose the common because I don't think you need to worry too much about the rare unless you're looking to play against a lot of decks that play very expensive permanents.
Right. And so here's the issue, right? Is that when I think of mirror matches, the problem is that almost nothing hits, like unless you have something like Sap Overflow that lets you hit any permanent. The problem is that this doesn't really give you the option to hit something like Brassbug Hive, right?
None of them do. Like there's nothing unless you
Right.
have a full, like no reservations whatsoever.
Right. Here's my thing though. Something like Brassbug Hive, something like Nylum Spires, those I don't even think not Nylum Spires. Catagear. Isn't Catagear 8?
Yes.
Here's my thing. Those cards are going to come out so late that it almost doesn't even matter, right? The reason why I picked this card is for stuff like Messictet.
Okay. Oh, right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And you're going to see a lot of Messictet
and you're going to see a lot
in
of
this
Messictet.
format. In this,
you're going to see a lot of Messictet. You're going to see you have the potential to see so many Bastions. Monolith is 5. This hits most, if not all, of the cards for setup that actually really matter.
Yeah, outside of Brassbug, I think
that
truly get played. Yes, it also allows you. Yeah, you're right. It has that, but I looked at it from you get great value already just at the common.
Yeah,
just at the common. You are not really losing out on stats. You one less forest for just playing it. But the only downside for this card is people will see it coming.
Yeah,
because the benefit only comes when you play from reserve.
Yeah,
unless you're using your trace ability and then you hide it, that would be
true too.
That would be useful. Your trace ability of drawing a card, putting something in reserve, and then playing this out with them without them knowing, very useful that way. But or you can also do that if you're Subash and you're going first.
Yeah,
because you can do that at your turn. Create a Brassbug, pay 1. Put this into your reserve, and then play that as your first card to play. So you can sort of hide it, but both are fantastic. And you're basically saying this is worth the upgrade and taking one of your 15 rare slots.
Yeah, this is a great card.
Yeah, for me, any card, like the cards that I really find most valuable, Nick, is cards that give you more than one option. Optionality. In the good sense of the word is what you're looking at. Variety of choices. It can be used for A, B, or C. And here, it's A, B, and C. And you get 2 of those options given to you when played from reserve.
Yeah. I think Axiom has a lot of good stuff. They got a lot of good stuff this set. I think especially with the augment. So I think you're going to see a lot more stuff, especially with Icebounds, that care about how many counters it has on it. I think augment has a very, very good chance to see a lot of competitive play.
Awesome. Well, that takes us to the end of Axiom.
That's everything. We did it.
I really enjoy this. You know what? I'm getting out of this, Nick, is I'm getting to read the cards and understand them through open dialogue.
Yeah.
And I think that's really useful. And for you that are listening or watching, it doesn't matter whether or not you agree with our takes, but hopefully that thought pattern allows you to think what someone else may be thinking and how they build it and why they may use that card in their deck too.
And the other way that I think about it is that this gives you chances to think how your opponent might be playing it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I like to think of it too, because I always like to, because the problem is that the more sets that you get, the more diverse the options of strategy that your opponent has.
As long as there's a divergence rather than a convergence of ideas,
right?
Like in many other card games, most people play the optimal deck, right?
Correct.
And everybody plays that deck. I hope that through these different things, there's 3 or 4 iterations of what could be optimal, depending on the meta or depending on what you prefer to do.
It's going to keep you on your toes.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be so good.
Well, thank you all for listening.
Yeah, thank you guys. This is awesome. This is a good idea, Chili. So everybody, please be aware we are doing this for every faction. We're doing this probably going to be moving forward for every set now too. Yep. So keep an eye out for this. This is the first one that's coming out. We're going to go through all of them alphabetically. So keep an eye out. But until then, we will absolutely see you in the next one.
Hasta luego.
Ciao.